I'll start my question with Tushar first. Tushar, um, since you have worked with different regulated industries altogether, and driving automation and taking care of different set of compliances and data sovereignty, and other set of governance and protocols, how you managed to get AI, interface with these enterprises while having the business as usual followed for all these enterprises itself?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Saurabh, for this question. And this is the very common discussions we normally have with regulated industries who used to. I mean, I would say used to because now they are adopting cloud and AI in a more enhanced manner, right? So first of all, to have that balance of automation in these regulated industries in this AI world, they need to first have a compliance by design principles in place, and with that, they need to have that enterprise standard framework where with geofencing and encryption, right, in place for all their AI initiatives, right. First, they need to actually set that up, and this is very important. Where even in Microsoft as well, that we actually provide a lot of tools and frameworks, and with recent announcements as well, where we help these regulated industries to try out AI initiatives in a more compliance and secure manner. As you rightly said, that they need to stay within that boundary. So with geofencing and the right encryption and with the right set of residency, they can actually maintain the sovereignty requirements for these AI initiatives. And with that, they can actually, innovate with the AI practices.
So, that is more around the compliance piece itself.
Yep.
But when it comes to adding automation to maybe a DevOps layer, or also maybe creating a certain set of CI/CD pipelines for automating their data governance per se, or data ops per se, how that has worked out for you in past? Reason why I'm saying this, I know I don't want to call out a name of a PSB bank. 3 years back, we were actually implementing one of the onboarding automation process for video KYC with this bank.
Okay.
And before that, they have never worked with Git Hub. They have never worked or used GitHub. They have never used CI/CD pipelines. So, and even their DMS and everything was obsolete in such a way that even the data punching used to happen before anything of that sort would have be accepted. So having a data ops to an organization which is not just 5 year 4 years behind, but rather almost a decade behind in terms of their practices, what kind of a challenges you faced and how you overcome those, maybe with the tools, or maybe with right set of a digital transformation journey with them? Like, what exactly worked for you to kind of make them reach to current environment where they would adopt for something like this?
Yeah, I think it's good that these industries often have a lot of legacy systems in place where you actually pointed out that there are a lot of actually stale data, which is actually hindrance to their AI innovation, right? And that's where the extensibility of the AI framework, and I'm again quoting the previous one, that once they have the standardized regulatory framework of their AI initiatives with the extensibility connectors in place, and now a lot of actually being connectors are being developed to actually connect to these data. Then these data ops practices with the data lineage quality and the right set of custodian and security principles will actually help them to actually build a platform for their AI initiatives. So the challenges which we have seen with these regulated industries a lot, that they have their own legacy systems, they have their own stale data, right, which actually restricts to actually try out a lot of AI initiatives. And that's where these newer frameworks, where we have the unified data framework with more governance built on top of it, with extensibility connectors, that actually helps to actually try out the AI initiatives as well.
So now I'll just kind of talk to Sugumar on that front. So see, you have seen how multi-cloud or enterprise architecture perspective truly unified the data ops and the AI ops, and how this automation stack look like. What are the kind of a minimalistic practice you would suggest any enterprise to adopt to in the very first, as a minimalistic level of adoption, and then you would advise them from making them start with that adoption layer to kind of build something more scalable with their existing environment. So how that is something which you would kind of suggest to any enterprise per se, which is maybe a regulated institution or a non-regulated institution.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. So when it comes to most enterprises today, the data as well as workloads are sitting in multiple locations, multiple clouds, on-premises, edge locations. Data generally is spread, and the fundamental challenge that enterprises face today to make AI work for them is these data are not usable by AI readily, right? Having a data ops is the first layer, which will give them that security, governance, and the meaning to the data that you have. So first step to any enterprise to start using AI in a bigger way. Of course, you can do POCs and projects on a specific set of siloed workloads or a specific data, which is fairly easy. But when it has to get across the enterprise and also to be able to move forward with, for example, agentics, to be able to take real-time decisions, you really need that data to talk to each other. And we all have tried, right, moving data into one single place, like a consolidated lakehouse, data lakehouses. And a lot of enterprises tried this, but not always it's possible for you to move data into one single place. So what we always believe is moving compute closer to where data is generated is the most smartest way. And each of the business unit within the enterprise owns their data and make data products out of it. Data products make that data ready for AI. Now, when there are multiple departments, each of them own their data, you are first of all taking care of the security, and the typical friction that comes within an enterprise is, how can I let my data owned or run by somebody else? That friction has gone away. Now, when that data team for that specific BU is owning and creating a data product out of it, you are able to leverage it with a common knowledge layer, which then talks to each of these different silos of data products that are readily available. So it essentially starts with what is the most easily modernizable data. That is where ideally we should start. For a regulated industry, it is a tricky question as such, right? You want to really innovate without disrupting anything that's going on. It is almost like you touch something, something else might fall somewhere else. So unlike maybe a new enterprise where you can go all out to do any of these data modernization, for these regulated industries like say BFSI or maybe even healthcare, starting at the periphery, edge, where the impact is localized into that one specific use case, and then you see the success of it, then scale to the rest of them.
Got it.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
So I come from the telecom space, but I would like to really give you an example from an Indian context point of view. So, and I'll take a completely separate example, which is the banking industry. Okay. Now we have multiple banks in India, right? And let's say I hold an account probably with HDFC. There may be SBI. There may be other bank, people who are really subscribing to those banks. So now consider this fact. Within the banks, you have branches, and branches typically would not want that their data gets shared with the other branch. Okay, number one. That was the kind of challenge which was really outlined by Sugumar over here. Now, imagine that you are really heading RBI today, right? And you want that for the benefit of laymen like us, right? We want to really be able to use banking services in a very seamless manner. We want portability of our bank accounts in half a day. If I'm not happy with one bank, I should be able to really port over to another bank. Now, how does this really happen? Can AI really, with data, really enable this? Because keep in mind that within HDFC, two branches will not share data. HDFC will not share data with SBI or with Canara Bank, right? Because it's their proprietary knowledge. They want to really ensure that that knowledge does not really go to any other competition. And that is where he talked about a knowledge plane on the top, which is what RBI should really create. That I'm okay, I'll not really pull any privacy related data. I will not pull data which will really give away HDFC's so-called USP to SBI and vice versa. But for the end public, I need to really create the right knowledge base which will enable an application ecosystem on the top to thrive. And that is what we are talking about in terms of really having DataOps within the banks, at HDFC level, across banks, so that we are able to really leverage the right AI capability on the top. Think of this challenge with land records that we have, right? And there are the space is so open that data getting governance in place, lineage, what Tushar mentioned as well, is extremely important. Cataloging of the data, avoiding duplicacy of the data. These are basics that enterprises need to start off right now. And it's a journey which will not finish in 3 months. If you look at organizations like ours, we are on this journey for more than 2 years.
I just want to add here is that though it is actually true for a particular industry sector, but think of it like a conglomerate, right, who is having different industry sectors within one particular entity, right? And this is how we are working with very large conglomerates within India and globally as well to build a central intelligence layer where we cannot actually have the data, which actually Sugumar also touched upon, that we cannot have that data right from the central lake house, which is not possible because of every industry has their own regulations, every industry has their own data sharing constraints, data limitations, and other constraints, limitations as well, right? And that's where the federation model actually works, to build that intelligence layer, to get the right level of knowledge from that data products which are exposed by individual entities, the insights from that particular data products, build an intelligence layer on top of it, and then to actually govern those individual entities. But this happens with the data sharing construct within that conglomerate as well. So very much required that though we have individual entities having their own data principles, data ops practices, having a centralized data ops practices is also very much required.
So, according to all of you, because this is turning to be a very interesting discussion altogether, and this is very close to our heart because we have been working in that direction altogether, and I did not plan for this. So, according to you all, what is the solution? Is it a distributed systems? Is the right solution which will solve for how data silos talk to each other? Or there's another approach which is having a digital public infrastructure being built for it, which talks about, let's say RBI has been pushing on having KYC tokenization being put in place, so that every set of bank, whatever the earlier source of truth they hold about the consumer in terms of behavior or around the risk analysis and other set of things, can be made shareable without disclosing the user identity and bounding it with the consent of the user. So what do you guys think? Like, is it need to be a decentralized infrastructure, or is it going to be something, an DPI, which is a digital public infrastructure hosted, regulated by the respective regulator of that domain itself?
So maybe I'll go first. Yes. So when you look at a complexity and a scale at which we are talking about, it is something that we want to achieve by centralizing. So what governing body is already doing is the layer of control is something that you always need to have centralized. You really are looking at single source of truth, which can only be one. You can't have multiple deployments, which means you are having multiple versions of truth. So that's the first thing that you want to avoid. So having a single source of truth, which means that all the data, metadata, goes through this layer where you know who is accessing what for what and who are the people who have access to it. All of those governance as well as security layers come into picture. So the software stack layer or the logical layer has to be centralized. Access, ingest, or any transformation that you're doing, everything goes through that metadata layer, which is the knowledge layer we have been trying to talk about. The physical deployments could be multiple because of, say, latency. We talked about latency, data egress. It could be geographical distribution, data sovereignty, so many other factors that play in. And it is also something that you don't want all eggs in one basket, right? So you don't want everything sitting in one place as well. So you would want to build enough resiliency within this architecture. So having a logical architecture which is centralized, but physical deployments that could be in various locations based on proximity, based on requirements of that particular industry is typically how I would look at for a scale like what we're talking about. But for an enterprise, it could be slightly different. If it is across a manufacturing company which has maybe 10 factories that they want the local data for doing inferencing and for doing maybe quality control, maybe to do any of those specific computer vision use cases, for example, or production control, operational efficiency and whatnot. That data has to be very close to where the data is being generated. So you can't send that to a central place and then expect a result to come out, right? So you want that inferencing happening at that edge. We call far edge, near edge, and a lot of those common terms that you would hear from. You want that sub-millisecond response times for your data to get action insight from. But you don't just want to let that data sit there as well. You want use that data to make your model more intelligent. So you want to funnel that information from those factories into probably a centralized location where you are able to use that to train or fine tune your model to make it more and more accurate.
So do you think, this is again a question for you, Yatin. Do you think the government initiatives around one of this called AI Kosh, I'm sure you must have heard of that. So AI Kosh would be a solution of something, but what I got to know from the industry feedback, a lot of public data is being put to the AI Kosh, where the training of machine learning models and other set of things are being done in the for the good part for the citizen itself. But none of the private partners or any of the private entity tend to participate into such AI Kosh because it is under the central governance. And in the central governance, I think they all have a kind of a mind share that they do not want to participate unless until there is a monetization opportunity, or they are being worried about their own set of data intelligence sovereignty, which they want to keep it as an IP for themselves. So what do you think about that particular thing?
Thanks, Saurabh. So first, I would like to contest your impression that private industry is not willing to cooperate with the governments. In fact, the telecom ministry has initiated several initiatives where there is a lot of participation coming in from not only the big corporates, but also the startup ecosystems. And one of the things really is, how do we really create the next generation infrastructure planning based upon data that the government already owns? And I see Dr. Aloknath over here as well. He has been part of this whole topic as well, wherein the government is sitting on tons and tons of data. Look at our traffic data, which is available in Bangalore city. Every camera that captures traffic intensity can be complemented by data which Airtel, Reliance Jio has on each cell, how many persons are really transferring from one cell to the other, including then you have traffic light signaling data which is there, GPS data which is there. Now it's a question of really trying to integrate this. And there are a lot of corporates. Microsoft is involved, Dell is involved, Nokia is involved as well in these initiatives to help the government. Because keep in mind, like for example, the metro is growing in Bangalore. Should we have a metro station at this point, or should we have it 500 meters away? Today, that decision is made, I would say, based on heuristics, based on where land is available, not where real traffic really is flowing today. Can we really make it smarter? We pride ourselves like being the smart Silicon Valley of India, but can we really bring it about in actual, means by which such decisions are taken? The right flyover decisions, where should be the up ramp, where should it really end, how do we prevent bottlenecks, and so on. So these are topics where, in fact, I've seen a lot of private participation now coming in, working hand in hand with the governments, trying to really, of course, look at technology inhibitions that are there. For example, we don't have certain data points, we don't have geographical positioning data now from 5G. Can we really prioritize that with 6G? And then the Bharat 6G Alliance is trying to really push that into the standards. So these are things where, in fact, there's a lot of private government participation. It's just that these are topics which are really away from the eyes of the public. It happens, it will take time, but we will see end results.
In fact, if I can add, the India AI mission, for example, you can see the amount of participation from the private players to equip India in not just from a compute and the GPU resource point of view, but upskilling and enabling the population to be AI ready. There's a lot of examples that you can cite like this. Of course, you well covered with the collaboration that's happening from a Bangalore traffic point of view as well. I know one of the private players who's helping sort of stabilize the traffic chaos that goes in a lot of these big signals. There is a lot of partnership that goes in.
So one question to you, Tushar. Since Microsoft have been there leading on the generative AI and agentic AI framework altogether and taking care of a lot of orchestration and other sort of thing, what kind of an AI ops role you see in this particular context? How any of the organization shall who is willing to work or build their own sort of small language models, what kind of a SLM ops or LLM ops they tend to have in place to kind of be ready for that particular challenge of from adoption to scalability quotient?
Sure. So that's a great question, and this is where we have actually seen a lot of active traction that a lot of new companies or the tools which are actually, making for the incident management, primarily targeting the AIOps, right? They're actually working in two directions. One is that they are actually building more natural language interfaces within their own tools to interact the data which they are actually capturing, primarily for the IT ops operations perspective, right? Where they can actually look for how they can actually make more the incident management more autonomous, right? Using the incident triaging, right? Or the log analysis or the anomaly detection within logs, right? To fault isolations, all those things within AIOps, within that tools, how they can actually have more of a generative AI capabilities and natural language interfaces to actually talk to their data and make it more autonomous. The second direction in which you asked about some of the language models which they are actually building in, right? And that's where they're more getting into the agentic based systems as well, where targeting different areas of the AI and the IT operations, right? They're building very, very specialized agents, right? To target a particular area of entire problem management as well as the incident management lifecycle. And that's where I just want to introduce, whether you're aware or you must have already aware, that Microsoft also introduced an AI Ops Lab framework, where we have actually, and last year we actually introduced that, where we have actually given how different agents, different agentic systems can be built to automate your entire AI operations as well. And that's where these agents have different specialized tasks to contribute to AI ops as well as the data ops as well. So they're still how they can still run under the enterprise governance and boundary, because that is more important for these new age companies who are building their SLMs. They should actually target building these SLMs and capabilities around that framework. So I would highly recommend to actually go with that AIOps lab agent framework, right? It actually gives you directions to actually build your agentic system targeting for AIOps.
Got it. Thanks for that input. Yatin, this is something for you because again, coming from the telecom, so with new innovations like network as code and programmable, this 5G real-time data ops pipeline on network intelligence, what do you think when we would start seeing the right impact of these technologies and innovation to the real world, and how any of the citizen would we start taking advantages of this particular thing, maybe at the enterprise level, the citizen level? What do you think about that?
Good question, because there was a reference to network as code. Because what we are trying to really do now is, instead of network just being an entity to move data from one point to other, meaning a talk which I give is really understood by the other partner on the B side, we are now with network as code exposing the capabilities of the network to the application ecosystem out there. And here there is a lot of usage of not only abstracted APIs, but also AI capability getting exposed, so that it's very easy for any developer. He or she does not have to really understand the underlying capability of the network. They just need to really know what they want to achieve, so an intent, and then the network is able to really provide that necessary intent. I'll give you a very simple example, which is from the last 7-10 years, we've had this two-factor authentication, right? Every time you access your bank account, you really get an SMS, and then you authenticate that. This is something that was built on top of the network by the CPaaS industry. And all that it does is, it says in the banking software, they just have one line of code, right? And that one line of code really enables them to call the underlying network capability, and that network could be from Airtel, could be from Jio, it doesn't matter. The CPaaS player will actually find out where is that SMSC, and that SMSC will send the SMS and it will come back. Now this is for us the past. Now we have the possibility that the same banking software with one line of code can actually detect online in real time which is the SIM that you have really been using. Have you swapped that SIM, for example, to really ensure that there is no fraud which is really happening? All this can actually happen at runtime. So we are already getting into that pipeline wherein the first few set of use cases are being seen by end users like us. Industry is moving very, very quickly. In fact, enterprises are already starting to use network as code in a much better fashion with geopositioning related information. So keep in mind, if you have, for example, a robotic arm with a camera. Today, with standard GPS that works outside, it will really not work in this closed hall. But how can we really provide them that capability so that when the arms are moving and the cameras are moving, they don't clash with each other? How do you really facilitate that automation? These are things which really are facilitated by the underlying network capability. And these are foundational elements that are really running below the surface. You don't really see it, but it enables the entire operations and the automation around it. So I'm just giving you a few examples.
So do you think the same set of network capabilities can be used in other industries like MarTech and maybe for risk assessment in BFSI sector and other set of thing? Are these something which is on roadmaps of when we say network as code, and or is it something where someone else would come and try to disrupt the industry while using the same fundamental or network layer itself with maybe building some different use case on top of it?
No, good question. So this is definitely something which is not restricted to the financial industry. It's just that there is an exposure capability coming in from the underlying radio core and so on, which was standardized in 5G. Now there are forums which are really further standardizing with 5G advanced and 6G. Multiple other capability exposures that will really happen from the network. And here it's exposure not only of APIs, but via MCP servers as well, where you can have A-to-A communication as well happening, agent AI to agentic AI communication that is happening, which will be able to really handle a lot of other industries as well, including the ones that you mentioned.
Thanks for that input. Now coming back to you, Sugumar, what is the real win for an enterprise when it comes to ROI? When we talk about automation, AIOps, and DataOps, is it around the productivity? Is it around the efficiency? It's around saving money. What exactly the real ROI for them? And is it something very specific to our industry? Like it keep changes according to the industry. Like for maybe BFSI, productivity would be more important. Maybe for, let's say, another industry or e-commerce, it would be saving money would be a bigger criteria altogether. So what's the real ROI in this particular thing when we talk about AI ops and data ops?
That's a very interesting question. So of course, all of us will look for money, right? So that's where you would think. But if you really look at where automation really started off was, okay, how can I bring in a level of sophistication which would help reduce the number of people required to do the same job repeatedly. One, it will help them focus on something better. Second, it would eliminate errors which typically happen. When you repeat the same task, the chance of you assuming something and creating an error is much higher. So automation really helps you get to that additional level of accuracy that you can get to. But today, enterprises are looking at not just reduction of the efforts from a people point of view, but really looking at how we touched upon AIOps a little while back and DataOps as well. So the way enterprises will really look at is, how can I leverage the telemetry information that's coming from all the infrastructure layer, the compute storage network, your various application softwares, all of that feed into your DataOps layer, and that becomes an input into your agentics. That way, all of this information correlated to solve one single problem for the enterprise, which is availability, right? So how can I know a slowness in the application or a failure in the application or unable to use a specific data? Where is it really happening? And extending that automation from not just identifying where the problem is, but also to remediate with an agent which could go and say, this is where the problem is, kickstart a next set of actions for you to solve that and bring back your business alive. So the revenue savings or the cost savings from a deployment, etc., from an automation, while it started as the simplest way to explore something, but the real benefit for an enterprise is when you're able to solve this multiple layer problem with one single way to handle all of them.
Thanks.
Just adding to that, I think Sugumar really covered that. That's the next wave of innovation with this AIOps and DataOps, that the application availability, right? It's actually a biggest headache. Is it working? Something that Sugumar actually brought the right point actually, where the next wave of innovation is bringing more AI in SRE, right? To make more application uptime highly available and make it more agentic as well, right? Where they can actually start taking the autonomous decision rather than the usual automation as well, right? And that's where the organizations are actually leveraging these agents to actually build more capabilities, right, to enhance their overall revenue operations as well. So not only the ROI is the ROI from the particular automating a particular task and reduction in workforce is that revenue, but building more capabilities to make it like a product where they can actually target their other markets and other areas which they are not into. So like telco, sir actually talked about, right? Yatin actually talked about. Telco is not a completely telco anymore, right? They are more into a digital first company. They are building a lot of digital capabilities like CPaaS he actually touched upon. But there are other, since they are actually having the data, they are investing a lot on the data monetization as well. And with their focus shifting away from this application uptime using AI in SRE, which is the next wave of innovation Sugumar talked about, they are focusing more on building those capabilities additional as well.
Yeah. This is faulty data. You need to keep it aside and work with data that really works. Okay, so just to add to what Sugumar and Tushar were really outlining, I want to give you a metaphor because we are at the start of the AI super cycle. That's what the industry really is talking about. And we can learn from history. I'm a big fan of history. So when steam engines were really ruling the roost, and then electricity came about and we had the electricity super cycle coming in, we had the electric motors coming in. So first, the enterprises really just, so they had a process which would go through the whole flow. They would say, okay, just remove the steam engine, put in the electricity, normal, new AC or DC motor, and I will have efficiency, which was normal. But now with what we call a super cycle is you have a chance to really rewind and relook at the entire process that is happening. Something which was really taking 10 steps, can I really do that in 3 steps? And that is why we call this an AI super cycle, because you have the underlying capability to really make that change. So when you talk about ROI, I'm looking at that next level about how we can re-engineer our processes for everything and anything that we do. How do we really get to that level of efficiency? Not only efficiency, it will then lead to productivity. It will unleash a new level of human ingenuity that we have not really seen in the past, because intelligence will really be distributed in this aspect. And mind you, 20 years down the line, the kind of intelligence that we're seeing from these models, this will come cheap. It'll be extremely cheap to understand and get this intelligence. The companies and the approaches that will really be successful will be the ones that we call reliable at that point in time. So reliability will become the main differentiator rather than intelligence, because everybody at some point or the other will come to that level of intelligence. How reliably are you able to really now leverage that intelligence will dictate who succeeds over a long period of time.
So, now this is an open question to all of you. Two advice you want to give for any startup which is building for enterprise tech, using orchestrations layer, whether agentic AI framework or maybe working on, a distributed ecosystem to bring all these data silos together. So what are those two quick suggestions or advice as the CTO of the respective organization you will give to these startups altogether? We start with
maybe
you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have the
You
mic.
have the mic.
Okay, so number one, data governance. Nothing can replace that. And ensure that duplicity is removed. You have the right ownership of it, cataloging of the data, and then you're able to really leverage the data for federated learning, number one. Number two, definitely AI will work with all the fancy that is there, but we have to respect the environmental constraints that will really throw that use case into. So be it latency, be it compute, because you're not going to have abundant compute at any point in time on the far edge and so on. So you have to consider the environmental aspects, and this is where I always tell even my team members, and I always tell myself, don your system design, don your system engineering hat. Look at it incomplete, holistically. The AI that will work in your labs without system constraints will not function in the real world if you don't consider the systemic aspects. And many enterprises, startups especially, they go in with that green scenario. They are not ready for the kind of issues that the field will actually throw up. And that, therefore, I also really smile with this, because we were just having that discussion saying India, with all the constraints that we have, is a fantastic playground. If you can really get an AI system to work in the Indian context, it will work in other parts of the globe, not the other way around.
Please. No, I think Yatin has already covered most of it, that we need to have, first of all, data governance. But with that, they should have the enterprise mindset in place, right? That not only the resources which they are actually to test it out, like Yatin covered that, to test it out at the scale at an India level, but do they have the right security in place? Do they have the right governance in place, not only from the data, but from the AI perspective as well, right? Who is leveraging those AI? Is AI working under the boundary of which it's supposed to be, right? Whether it's not actually taking any other step which it should not be, right? And that's where the enterprise readiness of a particular startup actually comes into effect, right? They normally jump over. I have worked with a lot of actual startups and I have seen that hustle. They normally jump into solving a particular problem, but they don't think from the enterprise lens, right? That if I actually start solving this particular problem, leveraging some of the public data which is not authorized, which is not actually regulated, right? And which is not actually, I would say, validated as well from the enterprise perspective, right? But I'm actually solving a problem, I'm actually doing a good job, but that's not the case with enterprise. Enterprise has to work within a boundary. So first of all, they need to set up a proper framework, both from data as well as AI particular perspective as well. And then they actually start thinking of a problem. And also, just to add this, and a lot of actual startups are doing it as well, they are getting into the micro apps perspective as well. So they are getting into the micro apps world, where they're not solving the entire process at once. They're picking up a particular part or particular module of a particular process, and then they are actually targeting that particular piece only. And with that, if they actually apply their enterprise governance and data governance principles into place, I think that is the way to the success for that particular startups.
Yeah, I think most of the points were covered, but if I really look at what could be the deciding factor, what is the biggest, maybe $100 million problem the enterprise wants to solve? Your use case should start with that. If you pick an easy win or a quick win with something to try out, that could probably, which is what a lot of enterprises started with, right? Started with chatbots. You pick up maybe a support assistant, a RAG framework, and solve a small query and response for what you already have a knowledge base for. This is good to try out your hand, but can you really see it scale within the enterprise? Unless you have attempted to solve a big problem for the enterprise that is really worth solving for, it will not scale within the enterprise. So to give an example, any use case that you pick should either directly contribute to revenue increase, cost reduction, or risk avoidance. If it doesn't solve these top three, you are good to have, not really must have. Getting into that must have framework and then looking at how to solve them will certainly get you there. And today enterprises live with petabytes and petabytes of data, but most of it are siloed, most of it are not usable by the AI systems that are being built. So having data governance, data security, which already covered, has to be the mindset, or the modernization on the data is, I think, the next step that enterprises should do today.
So a bonus, because while the discussion was ongoing, I just want to reiterate the fact that for solving each and every problem, you don't need AI. And I think, so the reason I'm explicitly mentioning this is because this is the honeymoon period. Everybody wants to really pick up AI, and that too, agentic AI, and we will move to physical AI as well. They want to apply that, and which is normal. But it's important when you really look at a problem statement and you look at workflows that you have to really now solve. Maybe depending upon the parameters that you choose, what is the kind of input data? Is it finite, or is it really something that you cannot foretell in terms of the input data? What is the output going to be? What is your cost? So in fact, I have internally a 10-point parameter list, which I put down, draw a spider chart, because you can solve problems also using hybrid approaches. And there could be some parts of that workflow which are better solved at a much cheaper cost using normal traditional rule-based coding. So it's extremely important, and I'm going back to that whole designer architecture DNA which most of the engineers have, that don't try to really use a cannon to shoot a mosquito. There are other better means to shoo that mosquito away. In that sense, every problem does not need AI, because AI comes with its costs. AI comes with its own inherent issues, given the fact that technology is also evolving. So just wanted to caution the enterprise, ask that question 10 times before you really embark upon the right approach, because again, it's all about the architecture that you use, because we are not in this game to just solve a problem for 6 months. The companies that we are representing, we are really tasked with defining an architecture which will last for 10 years. Only after that do they want us to go back and really change things. And many a time startups get into this mold saying, okay, I will solve this problem 6 months. Again, that whole piece of code is so shittily, sorry to use the word, but architecturally it is so weak that you need to keep bandaging it to really run. That's not the way in which you really develop the solution.
I don't know whether how much time we have.
Technical minds come together, the discussion never stops. Now the orator is saying that please, there is the next session.
Just want to have one last point, that when you actually identify that, I'm just adding to what Yatin mentioned, that every problem cannot be solved with AI, but if the problem can be solved using AI, don't think that generative AI is the answer. The traditional, or I don't use the word traditional, but the predictive is also a solution to many of the problems which normally people don't think. And especially the startups, they always think from the agentic AI or the generative AI lens, right? And they forget the core principles of AI and ML, right? Which can actually solve most of the industry problems till date as well. So that AI is not dead, to be honest, right? So they are still working. So depends on the problem which you are trying to solve. Do not actually evaluate every problem with the lens of generative AI or agentic AI, right? So first filter out with whether it can be solved using AI or not. And once you filter that, always see that which AI actually we need to actually get into. So do not throw any problem or every problem to LLM, right? So that can't be solved.
So,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so in the essence of time, you can directly reach out to them if you have any set of questions and doubts. More or less, this is a very great discussion, talking around AIOps, DataOps, orchestrations layer around those automation. Plus, we talked about what is the final solution when it comes to knowledge sharing, whether it may be a DPI approach or something built on a decentralized or a distributed systems, like we see DLT in in telecom, or DigiYatra built again on the decentralized ecosystem. Lot of initiatives have been taken on that particular front, because everyone wants to protect data, maintain their data sovereignty, but at the same time have that democratization of intelligence. So thanks all of you for joining us and having this great discussion.
Thank you.